Morning, welcome back to Kirkstone. Just a very quick update on the South African geophytes and bulbs to see what developments there are. The first thing to notice is that there is finally in the year some appearance of greenery amongst the Massonias and the Daubenyas. So I don't know if anyone can see that, but we have a first appearance of the year of a Massonia pustulata, just starting to pop its coiled pair of leaves out through the surrounding substrate of small pebbles. And then not much joy from the Massonia depressa, hirsuta or citrina. Then moving past Massonia echinata, there's also not a great deal of life, but the first green hope of spring, well in this case the winter, Massonia longipace is finally showing itself to the world. So hello Massonia 1 and hello Massonia 2, and we'll have an update very soon from Kirkstone on the development of the Massonias. So far 2 Massonias up and many more to come. This is the second of our monthly updates on what's happening with the South African geophytes. Basically these are plants, corms, bulbs, rhizomes, call them what you will, which mostly come from the South African dry areas. So these are xerophytic plants which are adapted to very dry conditions, just like a cactus or a succulent would. Many people try to disguise the fact that they've actually become interested in growing bulbs by calling these succulent bulbs. So to me they're just bulbs, but they mix in very well with a collection of cacti and succulents, not least because the majority of them come from a winter rainfall area in South Africa. This means that even in those arid conditions of the Karoo or the Transvaal or other parts of South Africa, the rainfall is much higher and the temperature is proportionately cooler in the months of our UK winter. This means, of course, that in that part of the year where the rainfall is very high in our country and the temperatures are very low, our cacti and succulents will go into dormancy. And it's really nice to have something which is actively, vigorously growing, and in many cases actually very excitingly flowering in a time of the year which is otherwise quite grey and overcast and not very cheerful. There's normally a time of year to read through seed catalogues, check your labels are up to date with the latest taxonomic revisions that the botanists have inflicted on us, but more importantly than anything else, it's a time of year to celebrate the rich diversity and the botanical culture of that wonderful part of the world for plants, South Africa. Now, South Africa has more different genera and species per square mile than any other place on earth, even places which are celebrated centres of biodiversity like the Amazon rainforest, for example. So it really is a botanist's and plant lovers' treasure trove. So a quick overview of the different areas of the small collection. These are not all the bulbs that we have here, but these are the ones which fit together and are classified in a way which makes the relationship pretty clear. Now the majority of the collection is amaryllids. So to start with, we have a very interesting plant here. This is a Strumaria caruica in this case. Now Strumaria are plants which are related to Hessia and some other amaryllids. They have a very interesting 4-part life cycle. The first part of the cycle is they send up a tube out of the bulb, and it looks like a bit like a fungus coming out of the desert, and that sits there for a while, and then a few weeks later the flower stem pushes up through this tube. The flowers of course become pollinated, and those of you who grow amaryllids or Hippeastrum before will see the regular 3-lobed seed capsule which will split, dehisce and dry out, and you can just see, if you look closely into the substrate, there are some areas of what looks like little green pebbles, and these are where the seed capsules have actually split off, and because they're almost spherical, these will roll in the wind and gradually dry out, becoming drier and drier and less green, and then they will split apart, the seeds will come out and they will grow. But of course here they come confined into the pot where I can watch them, and at the right point in the year I will start watering this plant again, and these seeds will grow and join in with the natural life cycle of the parent. Now, there's another Strumaria behind. This is Strumaria truncata. Now it's got a growing season which is slightly later, so we're coming in at ground zero. This is the very, very first part of the growing season. Now if I can get the angle right, and I probably can't, you can just see the green shoot of the flowering stem pushing up through the growth tube from the bulb. So the flower stem will emerge out of the top of this tube, and then the whole cycle will begin again. And another curious fact, we have a second plant of Strumaria caruica. Now this one was right next to the first plant, exactly the same soil, planted exactly the same time, watered in the same way, but hasn't produced anything like as many seeds. No idea why, it's just one of those strange things. Next to that we have a very old and venerable friend of mine. I've now had this plant for nearly 30 years. This is my oldest Haemanthus albifloss. Not a spectacular plant, not a rare plant, but a plant which has grown with me for a long, long time, which is why I'm very loath to split up its 11 heads into separate plants. So at present it's staying in its nice cluster, just coming into full growth, and we'd expect the first flower buds perhaps to be showing by the time we do our next monthly update. So that's one of the Haemanthus in our collection. And then we have three Romulaias. Not a great deal to show here really. From last month you can see the Romulaia has an incredibly long, thin, grass-like leaf. And that is because it does grow amongst the dry growing xerophytic grasses of the Transvaal and other dry parts of South Africa. So we have three Romulaia here. This is Romulaia grandiscarpa. Really quite spectacular flowers, but I can't show you those yet. The only real big difference from last month is we're now getting a second leaf in many cases growing up. Moving along, we have the first sight of a flower bud of the Lachenalia. We have 5 Lachenalia here. This is Lachenalia pauciflora, the few-flowered Lachenalia. Now it's just coming to growth. You can see the spotted leaves there, still very, very small. It will grow leaves up to about 3 or 4 inches long. But if you look very closely, you can just see the flower scape is starting to form between those leaves. And then behind the Lachenalia, we have another series of plants, which are a bit of odds and sodsies. We have a small Haemanthus here, just starting to grow, and then we have the a Scadoxus, which is still not decided to come out of the ground so far, so hopefully next month we'll have that. That's Scadoxus Paul Evansii. And then we have a nice Epheranthus here. These are really great plants to have in a cactus collection. They're very, very tolerant of low watering, so whatever watering cycle you're on for your cacti and succulents, these will join right in. And they're very regular flowerers. They have 3 or 4 flowering periods a year, and they can be quite spectacular when they're all in flower together. You can see maybe 5 or 6 blooms a plant. I've actually planted 5 small bulbs in this one shallow container. You can see the leaves spreading happily over the neighbours, and they really are cheerful little plants for the winter months. Now another genus which I'm very interested in is that continuum genus, because plants seem to appear in both genera depending on the botanist. And this is Albuca. Albuca and Ornithogalum are very close, sometimes called pregnant onions because of the way that they reproduce vegetatively. Now this is Albuca polyphylla, the many-leaved Albuca, just coming into growth now, Nice, strong, healthy fat bulb and some short leaves coming up there now. And then the next sort of interesting section here is the first of the Scadoxus multiflorus. So you can see the Scadoxus here is producing a nice big fat bulb, and I'll be able to show you what the flowers look like in just a few seconds, because its sister plant is for some reason about 2 weeks ahead and is really growing well. Now lots of people find my interest in these grass-leaved plants a bit bizarre, but this is Albuca species Augrabies hills. Now this has been in cultivation for about 25 years and never really had a species name, but we now think this is Albuca caruica. Recently plant catalogues, seed catalogues and all the rest have started giving this a name. There's some great pictures with close-ups of this plant and how its bulbs split into daughter bulbs on Kirkstone Botanica 2007 and on the Kirkstone Botanica Facebook page. Really interesting plants, great flowers as well. And then we have a line of plants which are all in the Massonia genus. Now in the last video these were just starting, I think, one of them was just starting to stick its nose out of the pebbles, but most of them are now in more or less full growth. And if you look here you can see the unique growth pattern of the Massonia genus. We never have more than 2 leaves, a bigger leaf and a smaller leaf, and if you look closely you can just start to see the flower scape forming between those leaves. So this is Massonia depressor, and in the next pot we had planted 3 smaller bulbs of a very closely related species. This is Massonia echinata, and it's kind of like daddy bear, mummy bear and little baby bear, all the same age, all the same plant, but one's a fair size, one's quite small, and then the little baby bear just sitting there minding its own business. Now the one which we've been really following the development of on Facebook, on the Kirkstone Botanica Facebook page, is this Massonia longipace, the so-called long-legged Massonia, because it has a taller flower scape than most of the others. Most Massonia and Daubenya have a flower scape which is described as sessile. That means flat to the ground. But Massonia longipace actually has a short stalk. Absolutely gorgeous leaves. The leaves are actually almost crystalline and they shimmer in the sunlight. Beautiful leaves. Massonia citrina, this is a one from Ruckegate Pass in the Karoo. This one's not doing anything yet. I have no idea what's going on there. All of the other Massonias are well developed, but this one is sulking, I think, after being transplanted. Hopefully something will come up for the next monthly release of information. Massonia hirsuta, again this one is a smaller plant, but you can see that the flower scape is much more developed. So you can see exactly what's going on here. The flowers should be emerging really quite soon. We should have something to show you on the next monthly update. Then Massonia pustulata, a similar scape, more erect leaves this time, but again you can just see the flower scape right in the middle starting to form. Now behind that we have an interesting plant. This is Ornithogalum apertum. Now this is a plant grown from seed collected by John Lavranos. The collection number is 29904. I'm going to show you the plant label there. Okay, so this is habitat seed with data collected by a renowned plant collector and botanist, and you can just see the strange spiral leaves just starting to emerge from the substrate there. And again, that should be more developed next time and we can have a look. Now the Daubenias come from a slightly different area of South Africa with a later rainfall commencement period. So we've got a few Daubenias here. None of them are doing a great deal. So Daubenia zaberi, Daubenya aurea, the golden flowered one, the Daubenya stylosa is the only one which is actually showing any signs of life. And Daubenya stylosa, you can see, has got exactly the same growth pattern as the Massonia. It's got 2 leaves, a bigger one and a smaller one, just starting to pop up there out of the pebbles. and that's the only Daubenya which is actually showing any signs of life yet. Then we have another plant which is related to a plant we showed you earlier. This is Ornithogalum Lithopsodes. So the Ornithogalum which looks like a stone. Now we have a much bigger plant of that, but this is one which is just starting to develop for this season. Now behind that we have one of the spectacular flowers which appear in the winter growing season. This is Scadoxus. It used to be a Haemanthus, but now in a segregate genus Scadoxus multiflorus. And Scadoxus multiflorus is a very, very, very attractive plant. It looks like a Brunsvigia or a Boeophene. It has that loose umbel of really fluorescent vermilion flowers, and as you can see we have a ring of maybe 25 to 30 flowers open, and there are another 45 to 50 flower buds waiting to come out there. So clearly multiflorus is a name which is very, very well deserved. Behind that we have a flower which has amazed me. It has now been in position without showing any signs of wilting or changing or dying in any way whatsoever. It must be a candidate for my most favourite plant. This is Eucomus Vandermeerwei, and it really is an astonishing plant. It's got those beautiful maculate, those darkly spotted leaves. It's a vigorous grower. It offsets freely, so we've now got about 4 or 5 separate heads here. But the flower is astonishing. It comes out, it grows, and then it just stays there. We're now up to about 2.5 months since this flower head appeared with that trademark pineapple top that all the Eucomus genera exhibit. Behind that we have a row of South American plants. So these are Hippeastrum species. So these are the plants which the common windowsill, some of them not so common, some of them very rare and expensive, but the more well known, should I say, Hippeastrum or Amaryllis that you see in gardens. So these are the species of Hippeastrum and relatives like for example Sprachelia. So this is Sprachelia formosissima. This has sat there without changing for quite a long time. But suddenly the leaves have become much longer, so we know that it's in its growing period now. And I always grow these plants more or less as evergreens. Now other people don't. Other people have the plant, they plant the bulb just before the flowering season, they enjoy the flower for a few weeks, and then they cut the greenery off, take the bulb out of the soil, and then put the bulb in a bag of peat or leave it in the pot for a couple of months to give it a so-called hardening period before they plant it again. And I don't really appreciate that treatment of plants. To me, plants are living things rather than just commodities. So I tend to keep my plants as evergreens. If they want to grow, then I let them grow. So this is Hippeastrum equestre. This is the hybrid Hippeastrelia, so a hybrid between Hippeastrum and Sprachelia. And then we have other Hippeastrum stylosum, for example, equestre, and others behind. Now behind that we have another Ornithogalum. This is a much larger growing plant, Ornithogalum longibracteatum. Very long and somewhat untidy in my opinion leaves, but you can see why they get this name pregnant onion, because the pups, as I know you call them in America, or the smaller plants or bulbils, actually split out from the body of the bulb and become separate plants and grow. An interesting group, this whole Albuca and Ornithogalum clade, this continuum group, very, very interesting. Now behind the Hippeastrum we have a number of species of Lycoris, none of which are in growth yet. So these are the spider lilies. Now in other parts of the world, like Japan and North America, spider lilies have a slightly different growth pattern than they do in the UK, which is a bit strange because even on the same latitude they tend to rest quite a bit later and then grow from the spring. So you have three Lycoris here, Lycoris aurea, Lycoris radiata and Lycoris straminia, none of which are doing a great deal. And on the back line we have another Scadoxus. This is Scadoxus Haemanthus membranaceus, just coming into growth, not doing a great deal, made a couple of leaves and is thinking about what to do next. And then we have a genus which I find really interesting. I've become very interested in over the last few months, and this is Ledaburia. Now the Ledaburia are the South African section of plants which used to be called Scilla. So these are bluebells essentially, or squills as I know you like to call them in the States. Very interesting plants. Now this is Ledaburia socialis or violacea, depending on your way of looking at things, which you may see sometimes still labelled as a Scilla. Lovely plant, lovely leaves, very easy to grow, great windowsill plant. And on the back row we have a row of Brunsvigia hybrids and species. So this is a Brunsvigia hybrid which is a cross between Orientalis and Bosmanii with the parents. This is another one from the same grower. He sent me this to see if it would be any different. This is the reverse cross. This is Orientalis times Bosmanii. And then we have the species of one of the parents, which is Brunsvigia orientalis, none of which are growing, and they're all sitting there minding their own business, not doing a great deal, to be honest. And then we have a plant which has been a spectacularly fast grower. We've really kept track of the growth of this plant and its recent flowering. This is Haemanthus sanguineus. Very large growing leaves. Lovely plant. Not much to say apart from the leaves get about an inch bigger every day. 2 leaves as always. These will gradually get bigger and bigger. There'll be a couple of weeks rest and then the red flower scape will push out from between them. But the leaves themselves are very attractive. And then finally we have the plant which opened the show. This is a spectacular winter growing plant. This is the Scadoxus, used to be in Haemanthus before Scadoxus became segregated out. And this is Scadoxus multiflorus. Now you can see there's a ring of about 25 flowers already opened. So very minimized petals. And the main thing that you can see are these pronounced anthers with the pollen on the outside. What's most interesting at this stage of the flower's development is, although there are 25 to 30 flowers ringing, this is only the initial blooming, and you can see inside there, as I pan over, there are approximately 50 to 60 flower buds waiting to burst onto the scene. So Scadoxus multiflorus, Haemanthus multiflorus as it used to be, is a great way of brightening up these grey winter months.